gap between the developing world and the developed world is a science gap. This is why Europeans don't fight between them, because they know how to solve they're based on fact. For us, sometimes in the developing world in general, things can happen because sometimes we don't base on fact. So basing on fact is very important. So to think about 2 years from now, but we're having challenge of feeding the children on the continent, that's another issue.
Thank you, Prof. Okay, we'll take you and then the next one.
Hello, my name is Takudwa, developer at Technomeg. I have a question for the panel. We know the rise of technology, AI, machine learning and stuff like that. Can't we have local governments and police and people with authority work with developers and big companies such as Google to identify patterns and trends in behavioral patterns of people who are likely to commit crime, people who are involved in gangs? For example, in Zimbabwe, we've got the machete gangs. So if we can identify online activities with the patterns that will result in that person being a member of being a part, and having the police taking action before, crimes happen, won't that be a good solution to use machine learning to help make the world a better place? The second question is contradicting my first question. This panel is focusing on using technology for peace, but according to Elon Musk, the continuous reliance on machine learning, artificial intelligence, will result in AI over being way much smarter than us. Won't that come and haunt us back? As a panel, do you have methods or strategies like prevention policies on that? Or thank you very much.
Let's take the next question before we respond.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. So mine is not a question; it's rather a contribution. I appreciate the issue of STI on dealing with issues of peace. But I think in Africa, I think in this region, in SADC, our problem is not of STI contributing to peace. Our problem is starvation and hunger causing a harm to the word peace. If you try to look at the African countries within the region, you'd find that the most problematic thing that they endure is the political environment. How do they promote, or how can they promote peace if we are saying they need to have more technology? More technology to what? Is it bringing food to the people? Because if the people are hungry, you cannot have peace in a country. There's civil unrest, there's tribalism, there's ethnicity. Those kind of problems can be solved by STI bringing food to the table, eradicating hunger and poverty, which is one of the most important SDG goal. So if we eradicate those, then we can speak of peace. But in this context, in this region, I don't really fancy STI as as a way to eradicate the poverty or the hunger. But if we focus on provision of food and commodities, then yes, we can focus on peace. But if we sustain without looking at that, they're going to have STI bringing them maybe more arms and guns. But arms and guns, would they solve the hunger and starvation in Africa? No. So which means more unrest and then less of that peace. So peace won't be achieved with that. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. But just to say that, that science, technology, and innovation is very key to reduce hunger and poverty. In terms of when you talk about sciences, in agricultural sector, you need to understand the sciences. You need to understand the breeding techniques to be able to develop agricultural crops that are adaptable. You also need technologies. We're talking about climate change. You need to develop these technologies that can respond to climate change impact. You need innovations. So all this combined together will contribute to reducing hunger. So science and technology and innovation is key if we want to eradicate hunger. Not just to let you know that it's very important to have sciences. That's why we have breeders, we have agronomists, they are doing the sciences that is related to crops. And why are they doing that? To eradicate hunger and to reduce poverty. Thank you.
Yeah. You see another thing? You see, another thing I also want to point towards that you said is science and technology has its own role in this, because like she said, if we're able to utilize it properly, there will be there will be more production of food. Part of what we talked about today is how can science and technology help us increase the production of food that we need. I think the minister said it earlier, and then he said that the food we produce are the food we don't eat, and the food we eat are the food we don't produce. So thereby, we need to see how science and technology can help us produce the food that we need. When we're able to produce the food that we need, it's also another thing is science and technology is also going to provide more jobs, and by so doing, more money for creation of jobs, and then there will be more funding, and then more people going home more happier than what it was before. So I think with this, but then it still doesn't mean that because we know that we only need science and technology to provide food, then we should forget about every other thing until we have provided food. Even while we're working towards providing food, we'll still work towards how do we also use science and technology to reduce this war action, to reduce rioting actions, even while we're still trying to know that the root cause is provision of food, which we're also doing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next question. Can we respond to his question on how to this fake news?
All right. Just before I respond to his question, I'll just add a voice to his issue of why we are focusing so much on science and technology when, as a continent, we are actually suffering from basic things like hunger. Forgive my voice. I strongly feel that science and technology is already and in the future is going to play a very pivotal role to eradicate hunger and poverty in Africa. I think one of the issues that we do each and every single day, subconsciously or unknowingly, I think these are issues of GMOs, genetically modified foods. Yes. So you see, scientists have been doing a lot as far as making sure that how much yield do we have over the kind of a field that we have, so that we can have fruits and food that is sustainable for a certain region and a certain people. I strongly feel that if we as Africans have already managed to embrace this technology, would be way better than where we are today. Because unfortunately, for countries like Zimbabwe, we have not been embracing science as far as solving the problems of food, because we always relate GMOs with foods that are not good enough for our health. But I can still go back to say, which are the best seeds that we're using today? Are we still using the traditional seeds that we're using in our fields, or we are now using modified seeds that probably are more drought resistant, that have better crop yields over small areas, and they can be used in different areas? So this is science that is solving the agricultural problem. So we can't then dump science and technology in the pursuance of us focusing on agriculture and just food security, because we should actually be embracing it and making sure that it plays a much more pivotal role to make sure that we do not actually waste so much of our inputs and utilize a little bit of land and infrastructure towards a better yield, so to say. So coming back to his question is on the artificial intelligence issue, where you say that the rise of artificial intelligence, are we not using it to detect behaviors that humans can be seen to be doing, so that it can be used to mitigate criminology or crime, so to say, in a society? This is a technology that is already being implemented. I actually witnessed some of these, the research that was ongoing in China. Yes, maybe we may not talk about the same in Zimbabwe or other African countries, but they're already using this. The way people behave and respond to certain issues are more likely to turn them to certain kind of behaviors. So such researches have already been done. And I've been following closely an issue on a smart city technology, where they can actually follow up a person from the where does he usually spend his time to, what does he do after work hours, what kind of people or crowd does a certain suspect or a certain person really go through. Of course, I'm not talking about invasion of privacy, but I'm talking about people who can be targeted for certain, who can be scrutinized for, or who can be put in a certain place for investigation towards certain crimes before they happen. So I've seen a lot of documentaries and studies on artificial intelligence, how certain behaviors can be used to then track whether or not a certain individual is likely to commit a certain crime. So I strongly feel that there's a lot that is already being done towards that issue of using machines. And while you definitely contradict yourself on artificial intelligence, you said we are worried that we are going to be creating computers and machines that are going to be smarter than human beings. Well, I think it's a general scare that human beings can probably throw around everywhere. But as someone who has a strong programming background, I strongly feel that in answering you in a single word, whatever men can put, men can break. We are not going to be in a position whereby men are going to create systems that are going to overrule men. You know, we can't have a new iRobot. It only happens in a movie whereby then systems, all of a sudden, they then tend to be robots. Every machine language is coded, hard-coded and software-coded. These are two elements working together. But remember, it's a set of instructions that are programmed for a machine to do A, B, C. It can then not do D and E when it was never programmed to do D and E. So machine code learning ends and starts somewhere. It's not like it's a god after you create a machine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sir, before you, yes, come with you.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is John Machahana. My question is based on the politics of Africa. Yes, I understand there is need for us to achieve peace. There is need for us to go towards a digital world. There is need for innovation and creativity. But let's remember that as we implement these projects, sometimes they are jeopardized or compromised by the political influence. So my question is, how can we divorce the political influence over some of these innovation and creativity projects so that there is transparency and peace? Because we can't achieve peace whilst there is that political atmosphere, there is politicization of some of these projects. We need to move towards a society where there is where peace prevails every time without political influence. Because some of these projects, they have nothing to do with politics, but they just need to be implemented. So my question goes like that.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
The issue related to profiling a person is a very, very important question in terms of ethics. Because once you start, you don't know where it's going to finish. You can say, I'm just going to do, even if somebody is a prisoner, somebody has a right. You don't have the right to go to, because by doing the artificial intelligence on his data, already you are using something that belongs to him, her or him. And normally, a government can do only that with a subpoena. They can subpoena your data, and then they can do whatever they want on that. So this means the judge has given the right to read your data. Because the data, it's like a book that belongs to you. So these are issues that have to be considered. I have a master's degree in law, in technology laws. So that after, when I was a minister, I did a master of law on the issue of privacy and things like that. That's why these are issues very important to consider when we are doing that. Because the last thing you don't want, and that can happen also sometimes in government throughout the world, they may say profile some people. That happens. So you don't want that to happen because it can have other implications. So those something that is, I think we should avoid. Yeah. So yeah.
Can I?
Yes, please.
Thank you. There are a number of issues we want to address, and the issue of artificial intelligence is coming quite often. I think what we also need is, because I was talking, I'm not a computer person, and I was looking at what people do with artificial intelligence. In terms of agriculture, how they could map a field which is 10 hectares, and tell you there's moisture here, there's less moisture there, there's a disease there, and then they can trigger the programming and say they should only spray the disease here and not there. And it also goes to the people, how we behave. I think what is important in all this is, do we have policies in place to protect ourselves from this kind of developments that comes with artificial intelligence? It's something which we have to consider, and I think it has to, the development of artificial intelligence should run parallel with the development of the processes, policies that run with them. And there was the need for political influence, how we can divorce it from the projects we would want to do. Well, I'm in the science field. You do the science, unfortunately, you do the science based on who is funding it. Our governments need to fund our projects. Otherwise, people will come from outside and fund projects they don't want. And projects